So in Spain, La Liga has resumed. There's been a lot of conversations. Prior to the season, the tone of the conversations were different. As we record this episode, the tone of the conversations have turned heads around. And you see Ancelotti struggling to click his front three, while Hansi Flick is doing magic with his Barcelona attack. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because prior to when the season started, obviously Barcelona has had their managerial challenges with Xavi. They finished the season not to Barcelona standards as we've known in the past. Not that they did terrible, but they were second in the league and all that. They appointed Hansi Flick, former Bayern Munich, former what do you call it, Germany manager, and this is the same person who did them the dirty of the famous 8-2 defeat with his Bayern team. And so people were like, mixed feelings, but at least they were happy that now he's on their side. And everybody was eager to see what he can do with the team, especially knowing the financial troubles that Barcelona are in. And so during the preseason, it was probably a dark narrative around Barcelona as to what the season is likely to look for them, because they were struggling to sign players. They were targeting Nico Williams, made a big deal out of it, but couldn't get him. Eventually, they got Dani Olmo and all that. And even him, it took days. And it took like after 2 matches before they could register him for the league, because luckily for them, Christensen got injured. And there was this meme online where they're like, Juan Laporta went onto Christensen's bed and took his leg and broke it more so that they could kick him out of the way and register Dani Olmo for the league, which is very ridiculous. But those were the plights and those were the stories that were defining Barcelona's start to the season. Madrid had a different image around them because the famous pursuit of Kylian Mbappé had finally arrived, which now had completed the deadly Madrid attack of Vinicius, Mbappe, Rodrigo, Bellingham. Now people were expecting way more from this Madrid attack. We had a whole episode on the Beer Parlour where we tried to analyze exactly how they were tactically going to set up, the risks of that setup as well, and what we were likely to see because we trusted the likes of Ancelotti to be able to deliver. Now, what we are seeing is 4 games into the season. Madrid are yet to play their 4th game today, but into the season, Madrid has lost. They've drawn 2 games, I think, and won just 1. And so they are on 5 points, while Barca has won all their 4 games and so are on 12 points. Now you have Barcelona not just winning, but dominating and scoring. Yesterday, they scored 7-0. And usually, a lot of the time when teams have high-scoring games, they concede like 1 or 2 frivolous goals because they become confident, right? But this is a team that made sure that they kept a clean sheet while scoring 7, which is ridiculous. And so now
And
the question
have
has
scored
been,
12.
and yeah, they could have. So now the question is Hansi Flick doing the magic that everybody thought Ancelotti would do with his superstar front 4? And why are we seeing those challenges? Because now for Madrid, there are issues of the balance of the team. There are issues around the coordination and the front attack, the front players learning to play together, but also learning to rely on each other and not just their individual abilities. Because usually the problem with Galactico, every Galactico era, is that maybe the risk of running and having individuals trusting themselves more than trusting the team, right? And so I just wanted us to discuss what you see the season going on and looking like, what we can project from here on, and whether or not these signs are going to be lasting signs, or they are just early experimentation issues that Ancelotti is facing.
I think there's something very poetic going on between Madrid and then Barcelona.
Yeah.
Like the kind of narratives which are being shaped and which are being interacted with in here is almost very interesting and poetic.
Yeah.
Because remember that last season, or was it last season when ultimately Benzema left?
Yeah.
Madrid was left without a striker.
Was going to struggle.
Yes,
Yeah.
they were left without a striker. They were left without like Mbappe not signing for them. So when they had to sign Joselu,
Yeah.
sign yeah, I think they had signed Bellingham the season, either the season before,
It was
so
last
or
season they signed Bellingham.
yeah, it was last season they signed Bellingham. It was like, okay, what's the point here? And Modric and Cruz were still there. It didn't
Yeah.
look like Kamavinga and Chouameni were even going to
Still,
break out,
yes.
or they
Yeah.
weren't there. So it was like, oh, this Madrid team is old, because the season even before that, when Benzema was there, they said the Madrid team was old,
Remember the
and it
season
had this
before
old
Barca won
narrative.
the league.
Yeah,
Barca
yeah,
won the league that season before. So obviously the
yes,
stories were favoring Barca going into that season.
yes. Because Barca, everyone said, look, by Xavi did like an
Yeah.
unreal job winning in the midst of this financial crisis, because like, and that also tells you of the mentality Barca as a club has. I'm thinking I'll bring one of my friends, Kobe Siama, to talk about Barcelona, because
Yeah.
what he tells me is that the mentality of the club is that they are special. So
Yeah.
they are not going to say we don't have money, so we accept that this is our, we need to manage. No, 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 no. There's a culture of we still need to move.
Excellent.
So people, yes, and that's why even though this season they were going to rely on La Masia, it was important that they made a statement signing. And if
Yeah.
it was not going to be Nico Williams, it had to be Danny Olmo. They had to make a statement signing. They couldn't go into the season without saying we'll not sign anyone. We'll use kids, because the
Yeah.
club still wants to be in that way. So after they won the first trophy under Xavi, it was then expected that fans would flow, players who want to come play for them, which they did. Joao Felix,
Yeah.
Gundogan, uh,
Yeah.
players were even signing for free amongst a number of things, just for the opportunity to be able to play for them.
Yeah.
So they instead lost the title, even though
They were on the
they
ascendancy with the
still
squad.
play. Yes, and the squad still wasn't there, but the fact that Madrid was able to win with one leg tied behind them was just too much to take. So
Yeah.
people just weren't happy with Xavi.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that he wasn't playing good football, because you could see in some games that the football was there, but they expect Barca to dominate, even if they do not have money. So Madrid just being able to do that, and the prospects of them being able to improve the squad also on top, was crazy.
Yeah.
Now, guess what? This season they bring in Hans Flick, and Barca is the one who, wait, you sack Xavi, who was managing with the squad,
Yeah.
for someone who we are not even sure is proven. Because I think Hansi Flick, he was
Hansi
very good when he was on the scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hans Flick, when
Hansi
he
Flick
was on the scene.
was brutal when he was with Bayern, but I
Yes,
think he struggled a little bit with the German national team,
yes, and then
and
that's
that's
when it
where
starts.
his stocks dipped.
Because people already weren't sure,
Yeah, what you are going to
um
get with him?
for, with Bayern. They were like, oh wait, this was Kovac's team. So I think that Germany job had a dent on his reputation a bit. People just didn't appreciate that, how good of a tactician he just was.
Yeah,
And so it felt like, okay, you are moving sideways at the very best. And this guy, who was at Bayern for so long, probably just has experience working with very good players and not like
yeah,
kids and things like that. Because he was working with Muller and Co. And
yeah,
he actually even favored more old heads, because Kovac was the more young and dynamic. Only for Madrid to assemble their Galacticos, and now they are also faltering. And now Barca is also the one
on the
being like
ascendancy.
excellent.
Yeah,
And I'm saying that if this season goes the way it is, I think we are being a bit reactive.
yeah,
It's still too early
way
to be
too
able to say,
early.
if, because Barca might just have, I don't know, a couple of things. We've seen it before where there's a downturn, because
The
these are
classicals
kids.
are there, so
Yeah,
if Madrid could just pick up and start winning and lash them in
yes,
classicals, they are fine. So it's
yes,
like
yes,
still too early to call anyway.
yeah. It's still quite early to call. So I think that's one of the things. Like, but if this season goes through and this season becomes like what uh, we are seeing it to be, it's going
Yeah,
to be one of the biggest upsets,
yeah,
like one of the biggest upsets we've seen in terms of sports. And I'm talking about upsets in terms of clubs in
yeah,
themselves competing, because now Madrid for a long time now has for some time now has been seen to have departed away from Galacticos, and it's
yeah,
been seen that it does not work. In fact, there are some people who just don't want the whole idea of Galacticos. People who were just, don't sign Mbappe. Why?
Yeah.
Because after C Ronaldo, you signed
Hazard
Hazard. It didn't work.
midfield. Yeah.
You signed whoever. It didn't work. Now you're signing Mbappe. Like we just won't have it. Every time we need to have this zero region and
Yeah.
things like that. They just won't have it. And they like how the team is playing. But they've gone ahead to acquire Mbappe, which is a terrific signing in terms of market value and also their play on the field.
Yeah.
But if they don't succeed, I think it solidifies the narrative that Galacticos just won't work for Madrid and that it was a terrible decision made. So trust me, these guys, I mean, it's still too early to panic. So maybe we are panicking, but they
Yeah.
have a lot to be worried about in that regard. Also because, and just like I was alluding to, they've shifted that narrative now and people are now saying, if it moves like a Galacticos, quacks like a Galacticos, then it's probably a
Yeah, it
Galacticos.
is.
You are saying it's not Galacticos and we assemble young players and whatever, but it is
The
Galacticos.
profile of
What
players
you
you
are
are
saying,
assembling, the age doesn't
yes,
matter anymore, bro. They are
yes,
they're not
the age doesn't
Galacticos by
matter.
age. It's
That's
profile.
so. So I think people say this is Galacticos, but on the other hand, Barcelona has always been okay. La Masia, but we have one or two
Yeah.
guys who signed from Alaves and co. Now it is really kids. It is
Yeah.
really kids who are having their first season in football. Do you know how much that narrative would go against like the Madrid team? And so I think even
Huge deal.
on a political level, in terms of where they banter and stuff like that, it will be very huge in shaping the way in which those clubs are viewed. So
Yeah.
the second thing I wanted to add to this was that Ancelotti, if he's the man manager that they say he is, he needs to figure this out. Because it was clear as day. It was clear
Yeah.
as day that there was going to be an ego issue
Yeah.
coming into the season. And what did they do? They had photo ops showing us that they were hand in hand together.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I can be hand in hand with you when we are chilling and eating fufu.
Yeah.
But
On
when it
the
comes to
pitch.
my business and when it comes to my work, bro, I'm going to say my stuff. And when you say your stuff, I say my stuff. That's where sometimes the issue comes in. And I'm not insinuating that they are fighting, but it is quite clear on the pitch that when they have the ball, my thinking that I can do this alone, because I used to do it
Yes.
all alone.
Exactly.
I'm
I
not thinking that okay,
drive the
there's
ball
someone who
alone. In the absence of Mbappe,
yes,
I drive it alone. Why should I now
yes,
be laying off?
yes, like I can finish it. Like, there's a fine in football, there's a fine point between you should have passed and you were right
Yes.
to go for it
Yeah.
yourself. For guys who are creative and brilliant, that line is very, very, very small.
Very thin.
The belief that they have that they can finish that ball,
Exactly.
you see it in the sky and you are like, oh, you should have passed that ball. No,
But if he
he
scored,
scored
we'd
that thing
say
in
he's a
39
wonder. He's
seconds.
a wonder kid, and he
Yes,
has the ability
those are
to. So you can't question him that much.
yes. So those are the shots they take, and those are the shots that Mbappe is still taking.
Yeah.
Vinicius is still taking. But the problem is that now you think, okay, the other option
Was
is
there?
looking better now.
Yeah.
Previously, it was Valverde. He can't
Yeah.
finish. So I mean, he can finish, but maybe it's better I finish it
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if
Now,
you are playing up
and they
top
are not
with Brahim
doing that.
Diaz versus you are playing with
Yes,
Mbappe, obviously
yes,
the quality gap is huge.
yes. So you think you should have squared that ball or stuff like that. So I think this is where we would have to see his man management.
Yeah.
And this is where I think his kryptonite might be because he specifically says that he doesn't coach the attackers.
Yeah.
He doesn't coach them. If you don't coach them, he says he gives them room to be creative, puts them in situations where they can be creative and allows them to do their. And that's how come we saw all of them moving
The
to
left. Yeah.
the left that day because they used to do that last season, Rodrigo
Yeah.
and Vinicius. But
They
it
would,
used to be
yeah.
nice, and then Valverde
Yeah.
will hold the width.
Yeah.
Bellingham is bombing forward. It used to be nice, and we've seen it done all the time. But what we saw over there was different.
Yeah. And you
What we
see,
saw over there was
the expectation from the front three informs the responsibilities that the other players take up on themselves to do. So if
yes,
you are just playing a front two of Rodrigo and Vinicius, and you know that they will drift to overload on the left, usually
yeah,
that signals Bellingham and Valverde to move. But also more importantly, because they were playing a front two, Bellingham was a free 10 with three midfielders
mm,
behind him And so he could bomb forward without any risk of leaving gaping holes in the midfield.
Yeah.
Now he's playing as part of a midfield three. He's not in front of a midfield three. And so anytime he does that upward movement, he risks gaping holes in the midfield as well. And Valverde is now playing as part of that three as well. So if he moves up, now you just have one person who is usually Chouameni or Camavinga holding the midfield, which is problematic because then you have a huge space in there. And so if you shift all of them, the reaction from the team now, as opposed to the reaction from the team last season, based on their tactical setup, is entirely different. And that's why they don't get the results that they want. Because at first
Yeah.
you could overload on the left and still have options in the middle and out wide. Now you overload on the left, the entire front from the middle to the other side on the right hand is empty. There's no one there, and there's no possible options for you to be able to create any meaningful chance out of it. And so it's like you say, I have a belief that if there's anyone who can fix it, Ancelotti is probably the best person to do so, with how we've seen him manage certain high profile players. But I also think that these players, we sort of overlook their ages and the development arcs they have to go through because of the quality that they've shown us that they can deliver. So you look at Mbappe and Vinicius, nobody talks about how young they are and they need to learn because they are the finished article in many people's eyes, right? But the problem is that when they are used to a certain style of play, these are players who would have to unlearn certain things and adapt to new styles of play. And I think that's the problem we are seeing now, that their youthful aspect, their lack of experience in really changing very, very quickly is what is showing off. Because last season, we didn't have this much of a problem because Barca themselves were struggling. And so even though Madrid was playing the front two, if you would realize, the person who was saving them a lot at the beginning of last season was Bellingham, with some
Yeah.
late goals, with some runs into the box, because he was the free roaming 10 and he could
Yeah.
bump in and have that effect. Because the front two were not producing, because if you look at it really, they were still adapting to starting to play inside the channels as opposed to out wide that Vinicius and Rodrigo were used to seasons before. And then eventually it clicked for them because they got used to it, but also because they were free to overload on one side and the reaction from the team was great. Now they are going through that arc again because a system has changed again. But Barcelona is doing so well that you can't ignore the terrible results that they are getting, and also that they can't have Bellingham bomb forward to compensate for whatever they are doing. And Bellingham is even now injured for a while, so that option is not even there anymore. And so you look at it, and it's really just a point of, sure, Ancelotti can coach, but the players also need time to adapt. I think it will just take one match to figure out exactly the best way to play, but how soon that one match would come is what we need to be looking out for. Because if it's soon enough, better for Madrid.
Yeah, I think Ancelotti is a very good man manager.
Yeah,
So he'll deal with the ego. I have no doubt that they'll have a lot of respect for him.
yeah,
But it's not just about that. It's about getting the best out of the players. And my only worry is he specifically said he doesn't coach the attack.
yeah,
And I'm not saying he cannot go there and then go and teach it, but it goes against what I consider to be one of his core principles and things that he's known for. I
yeah.
think if you tell Vinicius to stay on the left,
He
he's going
will.
to dribble most of the time and he's going to make the ball available. And Mbappe has to finish off whatever is created for him. But problem is Mbappe also wants to create and he feels that's where he expresses himself a bit more. But
Yeah,
it might have to be a different orientation to what he previously has. And when we've seen the dynamic front threes of Madrid all the time, it's always been the superstar in there, the other guy who will do the work, and
yeah,
the other guy who should have been the superstar. But
yeah, but never gets the recognition. BBC, Bill,
yeah,
Benzema, what do you call it? Ronaldo. It's
yeah,
it's Cristiano the superstar, Bill doing the work, Benzema the person who was supposed to get the shine that never got up until
yeah,
Ronaldo left. Right.
yes. I mean, and it always has that dynamic. I feel like Vinicius would have been the ideal second superstar, and
Yeah,
Rodrigo being like the guy who, because he just looks like he's just willing to work.
yeah.
He doesn't care what he plays, he just wants to be on the pitch. Obviously because he's the, even though you don't say least talented because that level of talent
Yeah,
is already ridiculous. But
yeah.
amongst the three, we
I
say
think he's
his
probably
profile is
the least popular in terms of
yes,
the media and how
yes,
they inflate. It's like you look at Bernardo Silva with Manchester City.
yes,
He does so well, but probably doesn't get as much praise as Kevin De Bruyne or Foden
yes.
would get.
I think the problem, Madrid's problem has been Vinicius.
You
Not
see,
in the way you think about, but they took a gamble on Vinicius, but I don't think they expected it to pay this much.
that's what I was about to say. Madrid's signing of Mbappe were seasons late than they had initially planned. And that meant Vinicius grew into the monster they didn't anticipate him to grow into. And that's what is creating this fundamental issue. Because if Madrid had signed Mbappe 2 seasons ago, Vinicius wasn't the finished article he is today, or he wasn't the deadly person he is today. And Vinicius would have easily understood in the dressing room that Mbappe is boss. He probably would
Mhm.
still have developed. He probably would have been much more understanding to vacate certain positions and adapt to play with Mbappe or to play to Mbappe's strengths. Because sometimes the decision footballers make is, I know this guy will play. I need to make sure I am the favorable option for the manager to pick to get the best out of
Yes,
him. And so that mentality
yes,
would have been there. Now he knows he's the one the manager would pick. And so somebody else has to do that adaptation to suit his
yes,
strength.
yes,
Mbappe also knows he's that guy. And so now both of them, nobody's doing the adaptation to suit each other's strengths. And the problem is they look at this and try to liken it to the likes of Cristiano Ronaldo, who came in and played center forward at first when he joined Madrid, and even for majority of his Madrid career. But Ronaldo is, I don't know, his mentality is probably different, but also he was much more comfortable playing center forward because he roams around a lot and he just wanted to score goals. And I think when he joined Madrid, his mindset was to score goals. Around that same time was when he settled on the idea that he was no more a free floating winger who just crosses for people. He's going to start to be a tapping merchant, score as many goals as he can. And that favored him because the system within which he was at the time when he joined Madrid, there were players who were there that were high profile and he needed to fit in anyway, and he fit in the best way he could. With the way Madrid lines up now, usually Ancelotti wants Mbappe to be down the middle and play Rodrigo on the right and Mbappe on the left. Guess what? All of them are on the left, running in from there. And you're like, nobody is staying. And this was the same issue we had with Luis Enrique last season when he was playing Mbappe down the middle. But Mbappe was much more disciplined playing under Luis Enrique because Enrique, like you said, unlike Ancelotti, gives direct instructions as to what he expects you to do. Ancelotti probably does the lineup, but gives so much freedom, expects you to do the right thing. And don't get me wrong, if players are playing in ways that they understand sacrifices to be made, that freedom is deadly for any opposition because there is no way you are predicting a systematic approach to dealing with them. And that's the advantage they had last season. But if it means that players are making the bad decisions, then that also goes horribly worse, right? So
yes.
it's a system that either gets the best out of you or shows the worst side of you. And that means that that's what we are seeing right now with the front three.
I think Ronaldo's first season was the season he most struggled, where he was playing, trying to play off the right, trying to
Yeah,
still dribble a lot into the wings. I think his peak was when Mourinho started him up top, and he was
yeah.
playing more as
As a
a
nine.
power forward, like as a nine, and
Yeah,
he was played in a counter attacking style of
yeah.
football, which suited because Ronaldo had blistering pace and
You run.
physicality, like,
Yeah,
and stamina. So that counter attacking football suited him. I think Ancelotti is quite adaptable to an extent to
yeah,
be able to switch tactics to help get the best out of it. Because this Madrid squad, what was clear against Atalanta is that you don't want them on the counter against
yeah,
you. It
yeah,
was quite clear that you don't want them on the counter against you. And so it was quite chronicled that they will struggle a bit in the La Liga where teams actually sit back
yeah,
and I expect you to put them down. When it's not a very solid back line, or when they are not very, very well organized, like individual brilliance and things can go through. But when they are very well organized, it takes team effort, movement to create channels for other people, things like that, expanding the size of the pitch, expanding the lines, amongst other things, in order to create those kind of chances.
Yeah.
So if everyone feels like they want the ball to come to them before they do something with it, most likely, and these guys, that's how they've played all their almost for the last part of their careers, where
Yeah.
they let the ball come to them and they do things. So I think that challenge is there, but I think the key thing to note also over here is that for um this for this Madrid squad, like we already discussed previously in the episode with Mbappe, that Mbappe would have to adapt his game to start scoring
Yeah.
goals, and I think this adaptation would come. I
Yeah.
still think he's still caught up in this move on the side, float, try and dribble, which obviously he has the ability to do. But I think Cristiano Ronaldo, for example, was told very early on that, look, if you want to be a superstar, you have to score goals.
Yeah.
You have to score. And when he understood that, everything worked for him. He just shaped everything of his to do
Yeah.
that. Because Mbappe has space. So people
Yeah.
say, play him on the wing because he has space, he can do it. You're not going to have pace forever.
I think in
But what you actually have pace to reach balls in the box and
yeah.
finish, which he was doing at Monaco.
Yeah.
Because what he did was that defenders just anticipated how quick he was over short distances and were always caught flat footed. So there are ways to still adapt his abilities to score goals.
Yeah.
And if he focuses more on that, I think they'll be clicking much better.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, like we said, this is early, but the early signs are ones worth discussing as well because it could define how his season would be like. But for me, if you look at Mbappe, his capabilities and the amount of goals he scored in his career so far, I think if you ask me which player would be able to challenge Haaland with how prolific he is, if he plays center forward, I would say it's Mbappe because he is the
Yes.
one who has that pace as Haaland. He's the one who has that ridiculous efficiency in finishing. Because this guy has countless number of finishing techniques in his locker, and he's just flawless when he has the ball at his feet to be able to score and run at you and score. But again, like you say, it's a mental decision for him to take whether or not he would settle down and play as a center forward. And I think, like I said, also these are young players who need to evolve into different profiles from what we've known them to be, or at least adjust their profiles to suit the team that they are in now. And maybe it might come quickly within the season, but it might also be a season long evolution where they now get to their best, and then we see them better next season. Until we look at maybe halfway down the season, we'll probably never see what it is going to be like. But I
Yeah.
hope they're able to figure it out because for him, it's the club of his dreams. Obviously, the money and the prestige and
Yeah,
all
I
that.
don't think there's a way in which Mbappe doesn't succeed at Roma. Like I just don't think so. I think this team would work. I think that's what we need to
I
understand.
think it would
Yeah.
work. And I also have a feeling that with all the noise, sometimes these teams like to react to media noise. And so, with all
Yes.
the noise, they will just one day get up and say, look, let's shut these guys down once and for all and just play
Yes.
football.
If we need to do this, let's do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think they would be fine. I think yeah, maybe in the short run, if by the time they figure shit out, or maybe it depends on sorry for language, but and it also depends on how much time
Yeah.
they are able to use to figure um that stuff
Yeah.
out. Else,
For me, in
I
the end,
think
I am not really viewing this as Madrid, Barca, banter or fight. I'm viewing this as Ancelotti Hansi Flick fight because it's down
mhm,
to the coaches to resolve the
mhm,
peculiar situations they find themselves in to get the best out
yes,
of their teams. Hansi
that's true.
Flick's financially constrained Barca and Madrid's ego bloated attack. These guys need to deal with their issues and they need to
Yes,
be able to unlock their teams. And Flick
I
is
think the
currently doing that well. So we need to see a
and I think
reaction
the reason
from Ancelotti.
yeah, I think the reason Flick is doing quite well is because his problem. I'll say both of them, their problem falls within their purview. But when your
Mm,
problem is just on the pitch, I think coaches enjoy it more when the problems are just on the
yeah,
pitch. When the problem is stemming from the outside, it becomes quite tricky to deal with. If it's on the pitch, you tell him, play it this way, don't play it that way.
yeah,
Another day, done.
yeah, yeah,
So, it's not easy to have similar conversations there. But like I said, a good thing is that um, Carlo Ancelotti is one of the best man managers in the world.
yeah,
But also, Flake tactically is great, and in terms of improving players,
yeah,
he's
yeah.
great at improving players. So,
One thing you see with Flick is his teams don't know when to stop scoring. He has this thing
he's
where
just
he's his entire approach, and he's one of the few managers whom, in his days where he did really well, manages to balance out scoring and not conceding very, very well. Even Pep Guardiola sometimes have struggled to do that. But when Hansi Flick has really done well in Bayern Munich, at Bayern Munich, he was able to balance that well. And he has his most prolific striker from Bayern there in Barca with him, Robert Lewandowski. I mean,
yes,
people say
yes,
he's a finished article, but if you have a system that plays to his strengths, he's still one of the most lethal finishers in world football. The only reason why nobody talks about him during transfer windows is because Barca will not let him go and he's not leaving, right?
yeah, you know.
But if you have Osimhen, Haaland, it wouldn't be too far fetched to consider Lewandowski as a striking option if you are looking for experience, if you are looking for somebody who will be lethal in front as well. So he is still a good player. And there are very brilliant players around him, the likes of Rafinha, Dani Olmo, who is now in the squad as well. Who is this guy? This is a 17-year-old kid, Lamine
Lamine.
Yamal, who is also now breaking into the scene and being much more influential in games. And so Hansi Flick has a lot of tools to work with. The thing about Barca is that there's an external story that makes it look that sheds the struggling nature of the club. But if there's a manager who is concentrating his efforts on the pitch, like you say, he'll definitely do a wonderful job. And I think that's what Flick is doing now.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I actually wish it does well because I've not watched all of his games, but the ones I've seen, like there's no fear in the kid size, and you can see that he gives them that confidence. There's a meme of him standing there after the 7-0 with a stern
Yeah,
face, and
he's not
for me,
smiling, he's not happy.
he's not smiling. And it was the same way with the Barcelona 8-2. He was
Yeah,
angry, he considered it, and like he
he was
was just not
pissed.
smiling. He was asking them to go, like
Yeah,
yeah, but I mean, like I had my concerns, and I've heard a lot of concerns about the appointments,
yeah.
and I still think it's still early days. But it's quite clear that if he has his players on the pitch, they will do well.
Yeah. I think one thing that helps, and wrapping up this conversation, one thing that helps with managers is when they come in and everybody can straight away tell he knows what he's doing. He's
Yes,
not experimenting. He's not trying to see what works and what doesn't work. He knows
yes,
exactly what works and he knows what he's doing. That boosts confidence from the fans. And with Spain, the media, like one of the we say the English media is harsh, right? But people will tell you that the Spanish media, people who have played in England and played in Spain, will tell you the Spanish media, they are like werewolves. They stick their down your spine and just rip it out, have no regard. After Mbappe's first game and he didn't score, the following day, the front pages of all sporting newspapers, Mbappe fails to score, started predicting
wow,
doomsday about what his life is going to be like in Madrid if he doesn't score in the next two or in the next three games or whatever it is. And so to
that's
have Flick,
brutal.
yeah, very brutal. Thierry Henry talks about it and goes like, look, the place you want to go and not perform and like dread not performing is Spain. Because if you
Mm.
dare, even Bellingham during the latter stages of the Champions League when he wasn't really scoring goals because he had created that expectation right from the start, the media were after him, right? So if you look at these, it's very, very comforting to see that the media is off the backs of Flick because of the performances he's putting out. Because given the issues around Barca, if he was not performing well, the media would have done worse. Now, I think if there's a team that can handle media backlash, it's probably Madrid, because you can't
Yeah,
shade their finances, you can't shade their recruitment, you can at best shade their performances, and they can
Yeah.
react as well. So for Hansi Flick, it's a good start for him, not just because he's gaining the trust of the fans, but the sharp-toothed media in Spanish football are at least not having a go at him because he's doing what is right and he's getting the best out of his team. So I really hope it goes well for him, and I hope Ancelotti is
Yeah.
able to react, because then we would have a very, very superb series of El Clasicos and see how the season progresses, because now you have two tactical masterminds getting the best out of their teams as well. And probably Spanish football will get back to the days of Barca Madrid, tough competition, people winning
Yeah.
league with 1 point and all that. So let's see how that goes.
All right.
Anyway, thanks everyone for joining. For the Barca fans, for me, I'll just say that you guys should be calming down, because we've seen you guys jump early and fall into a pit. For the Madrid fans as well, you dreamt about Mbappe. He's here. Show us what you guys want to do with him. But yeah, thanks for joining. If you love this episode, if you like this episode, leave your comments, leave your like, subscribe, click on that notification bell, and you get more content from us from the Beer Parlour, where we discuss everything relevant in world football. In the coming week, we are definitely going to see some classic matches. Erasmus here is eager to go and watch Chelsea. I'm also eager to go and watch
Said though,
Chelsea.
he's going to let me know if
So,
we score.
what?
If they score against us, he's going to share
Yeah,
the
bro,
notification line. When we
definitely.
scored, he was very silent.
Oh,
So
please.
God is
I'm doing an episode. I can't be focusing on Chelsea. Like, just ignore that. But I
when they
mean,
score.
I'm also going to hate watch all of you. Hate watch Chelsea, hate watch United, and see exactly what you guys do. But definitely, we'll talk about much more interesting things. See you on the next one, and have a great weekend or day or week or whichever time you are in.
All
Bye,
right.
guys.
See you. Cheers.